Jennifer Sness here, watching News 24 Live. Well, Dax Villanueva from the Robben Island Art Company is joining me in studio along with artist Christopher Swift, and we're going to be chatting about public art in Cape Town. Hello.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
Thank you both for joining me.
Pleasure to be here.
Chris, you are the artist behind the Sun Star on top of Signal Hill. I want to know what you think of the state of public art in South Africa today.
Short answer?
Short or long,
Yeah,
we have editing techniques.
Look, I think we've got to keep in context that South Africa is a very small part of the art world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are geographically and historically we're still quite on the outside of the kind of mainstream, what used to be a European and American-centric market, with the emerging China as a big contender right now. But it's still, while we might be a small part of it, we're still a very dynamic. We've got a dynamic place in the art world because of our histories, because of the just the mixture of cultures and dynamics in South Africa. So I think and contemporary art itself is really exciting in South Africa. If the First World will let us be in the contemporary art space, there's a pervasive idea to keep us with this notion of Africa as the big five and loincloth, that there's still that kind of sense of Africa instead of a 21st century Africa.
Now, Dax, tell me about your involvement in the Robben Island Art Company.
So Chris actually was the one that acquired the fencing from Robben Island those many years ago now. What is it,
2009.
2009.
6 years ago.
And his focus was really around his art. So he realized that the fence had a lot of value, both in sentimental terms and therefore in financial terms, and had a lot of power to be able to transmit a message and to create jobs and do all sorts of things, positive things, positive change perhaps. So he got myself and another friend of ours, David Little, to be involved in kind of setting up something to look after the fence, make sure that it's properly stored and monitored and used for the right purposes. So that's how I got involved.
So what's happening with the fence now? I know that pieces of the fence are all over. There's jewelry being made out of some pieces of it. I know Liesel van der Westhuizen is very proud of it. Every time we see her, she's wearing her fence jewelry. Where are all the pieces of the fence right now?
So the fence is used for various things. At the moment, you obviously know that some of it is in the Sun Star and up on Signal Hill, and there's a whole lot of other pieces that are being used in artworks around the place, mostly obviously locally and some other places as well. And then we have distributors that we work with who will add value to the fence and create various things. So Charmaine Taylor of Legacy Collection has created this jewelry range, and it's really beautiful and a lovely way of carrying the fence and that positive story around with you, sharing it with people. So we're very proud of that. And we have distributors who frame pieces of the fence. Some of it gets dipped into gold or silver, and sometimes they attach perhaps artist impressions of icons that were on Robben Island to kind of associate it. So it gets used for various things like that.
That's great. Now, Chris, tell us about why you used the fence in the Sun Star.
Well, look, it was part of my interest in recycling. We're looking at former objects, or objects that have in some sense lost their value or their perception of value. And then as an artist, I'm able to kind of work with that, reinvent it, turn it into an artwork, and the very same material can now be seen from a different point of view, and perhaps there's a kind of a value perception that is created within that. The way that I'm able to intervene with recycling and then turn it into an artwork, for instance, is really a metaphor for a lot of our recycling, a lot of things that we think are waste. And one of the key points I'm trying to make in this is our human capital, the people of South Africa, for instance, the people of Africa. I think we've one of our greatest kind of untapped potential is in the people of South Africa.
Now, is there any sentimental meaning behind using the fence from Robben Island in the Sun Star?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those. Look, I often have this question, and I wonder whether I found the material or if the material found me. So in a way, I'm just really a pawn in this material finding its way to a market, or finding its way to a gallery, or finding its way into conversation. There's obviously an attachment to the material. It's one of those special materials that is really just a conduit or a punctum into a whole conversation, a whole huge history in South Africa, that can never be distilled by one artifact. But the route to that conversation, and the reconciliation conversation or points of view conversations, can be started with this piece of material. I love the fact that other artists, other designers have taken on this material and taken it to its next level, so that it's not, it's in a way, it's kind of open source. It's available for distributors to kind of add value to it. We've had other artists involved in projects to try and really get the material into the public eye, so that these conversations about South Africa's past can be understood, so that we can have a better plan of the South Africa's future.
Dax, from your standpoint, do you hope that all the projects that include the fence are sentimental projects that take into account where this fence came from?
Yeah, I think that for us, the primary objective is for the fence to speak into something, to bring that really positive message of Robben Island. Sometimes people say, oh, but that whole thing is quite negative, but actually for us it's really positive, because we look at how far we've come. We look at the situation that we found ourselves in 20, 25 years ago, and how we've got to where we are now. We've really come a long way. The world looks to us, studies what we've achieved to try and emulate it, and we should be proud of that. And I think that the fence is really like our Berlin Wall. It's kind of a representation of the fact that we don't need those barriers anymore. And so it's really...
Well, we never needed them.
Well, we should never have had them.
Yeah.
It's just, it's, as Chris said, it starts that conversation. It's just a reminder and something that should be celebrated.